Okay, so hi everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Alexandria Zakos, and we are here for our monthly lunch and learn through meaningful speech. Today, for the first time ever, I have a parent on, and I'm really excited to talk with Harmony Perron. She is a stay-at-home mom to two incredible humans. She's a homeschooling mom to one, and she shares that they have a strong connection to nature and the need to explore. She said she's figuring out the rest as they go along. So that is Harmony's little bio. And some of you have submitted some questions that you wanted me to ask her. Harmony also sent me some really cool videos that we're going to share here in the beginning. And I'm going to explain Gestalt language processing a little bit here to those of you that might be coming across this on YouTube and perhaps don't have a background on Gestalt processing. So we're going to start with that, and then I'm going to launch into some questions. How does that sound, Harmony?
Sounds great. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so let me screen share here a little bit. And I just want to start with, how do you know your child is a Gestalt language processor? So this is a post that I had shared on Instagram a long while back when I had started Meaningful Speech. And there were four main areas I shared that helped people understand whether their child was a Gestalt processor or an analytic processor. So super quick explanation. Analytic language processors are the ones that we typically think of from TV and media, those kids that start with single words like milk, and then they add a word like mama milk, and then they keep adding words and they say mama more milk. Our Gestalt language processors develop language a little bit differently. So they process longer chunks of language as units, whereas the analytic processors process words as units. And so they will start from these longer chunks and sometimes on their own get down to words and then original utterances. And sometimes they get stuck up here in these longer chunks and they need our assist to get to original language. So Harmony's daughter was someone that fell in that category. And Harmony did see some of these signs in her. So my first question to you is, talk to us a little bit about how you recognize that Macy was a Gestalt processor.
Okay, so I didn't have that word Gestalt until I came across you, I guess about 9 months ago. But I specifically remember the first time realizing how she communicated. And it was actually, in retrospect, a single word Gestalt. And it was the word, or sometimes it was a single word, sometimes it was a couple, but she would say fish when she wanted to go home. And I always called them associations once I figured out what she was trying to tell me. So the background on that is the house we're in now, we moved from one house over. And I had access to both houses for about 2 weeks. And I knew it was going to be such a weird transition, you know, so I wanted to make that as easy for her as possible. So, so for 2 weeks, we had access to both houses, and the prior owners had left us their fish over at the new house. So every day I would start by saying, all right, Maisie, let's go see the fish, you know, let's go see fish. And we'd come over and we'd feed the fish. And then we'd talk about, you know, this is going to be your new room, and show her some visuals. And so when we finally moved over for the
stuff's already there.
For the first, I want to say a whole year, we would be out and about wherever, and she would say, see fish. And the first time I remember, it took me a second. I was like, oh, you want to go home. And so then it turned into ready to go home is what I would always repeat with. And so, you know, in retrospect, I was giving her that new Gestalt to work with. So then she started saying ready to go home. And we stayed there for a long while just because we didn't have the framework yet. Of course, I didn't know about Marge's book, and I had yet to meet you. And so now, gosh, now it's just down to, we're in stage 3. So she just says home or go home, or, you know, the last, I think in the clip you're about to show, she says home pizza because she wanted to go home and make pizza. So, so that's kind of like our journey with that and how I first discovered that that's how she was communicating to me.
Did you ever hear any longer scripts or any unintelligible strings of language?
I feel like at first, when she was very young, she was mostly non-speaking, but then yes, in later years, a ton, like within the last 2 years, yes, ekalela, long scripts all day. So,
and I know you've shared this with me, just to share with everyone, she does have a show she really likes to watch. And I think the first time we met, you shared that a lot of her gestalts were from there.
Absolutely. Yes, she loves Paw Patrol. So, and she has from the beginning. In fact, back when she was, you know, I remember her being non-speaking, like I said, for the most part, when she was first diagnosed. And I remember one day she got down on the floor and she got all her characters out. And she went from rarely saying a word to going, Chase, Marshall, Rubble, Everest, you know, and it was just like this big chunk. And I remember just like my jaw dropping and being like, what? Like, where did that come from? You know? And then another day it was looking at her color chart. And I didn't know at the time, I think she was 3, that I didn't know that she knew her colors. And she just walked over and she was all yellow, blue, brown, black, like every single one of them, like it was, you know, nothing. And that's just kind of how I feel like it's not only Gestalt language processing, but she's just like a Gestalt processor in general. So she's kind of like take a step back, take in everything, and then it's going to come out as this huge chunk, you know? So it was, so yeah. And again, this is all before I knew the word Gestalt. So learning that word, I'm like, oh my gosh, this has made so many connections in our life, you know? So yeah, pretty important word there.
Yes. Yeah. And so for those of you out there that are confused or thinking, what is a Gestalt? So many people call Gestalt scripts. And Ann Peters is the researcher that coined that term. So Gestalt or whole. So yeah, I want to show a couple videos of Macy. The first is just kind of showcasing your connection to nature and where you all live. And you actually have a connection to Marge Blanc. So I will show.
Yes, an amazing one.
Yeah, I will show that video and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
All right, so tell us about this video and about your connection.
Okay, so this is from yesterday, and this is actually in response to Marge's question about how's the ice in Sandpoint. So this is a little spot called Odin Bay, and it's just this thin layer of ice over hard ground every year, like around this time. And so we just go over there, and Maisie calls it crunch ice, like, let's go crunch ice. And so we go and just, oh my gosh, that sensory experience of just crunching ice beneath your feet and just being in open spaces is pretty huge to us. Well, being in open spaces in general, you know, we'll be at home and I've just, you know, I know that we need to get outside and get like some of that sensory input. And we're just so fortunate that we live where we do, where we can do that. I know that's not an easy thing for everybody. So I know how privileged we are in that. But yeah, that's a huge part of our day.
Yeah, so you shared this in your bio, and I know you share a lot of this in your private Instagram, but a lot of nature is a huge part of your life. So a lot of outdoor excursions. Can you talk a little bit about how you realize you need to get outside and how you know what kind of input Macy needs?
I will say that knowing the sensory input, that's a strength of mine because, you know, we're very similar in that way. Like we both need a lot of sensory integration, I would say, just to feel grounded. As far as knowing what things to help regulate her at the right time, I feel like that is something I'm still working on. And one thing I always, and actually, so Tiffany, I got her approval to mention her name because I figured it would come up, but Tiffany, who's Nigh Functioning Autism on Instagram, she wrote this piece once about how parents often neglect their own sensory needs. And I was like, I do that all the time, you know, and it's hard to, you know, I need to take care of my own sensory needs so that I can be the calm for her when she needs help with regulation, you know, co-regulation. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's kind of like that piece. I know that, like, if we're at home and things aren't going well, or we're out and about, you know, and I know, okay, we need to get outside, we need lots of space, and we need, you know, something that's easy and fun. And yeah, it's been extremely helpful for us.
Yeah, and what's nice about where you live is you probably don't have to give too much thought to it. It's like, okay, let's bundle up and go.
No, this spot especially, and I wonder if Marge recognizes it. It's out in Sunnyside, but it's so close to our house. So there are a lot of places that are more of a time investment, but we're so fortunate to have these little spots that are super easy to get to, that we can go to every day and whenever we need. So it is not lost on how fortunate we are in that regard.
Yeah. So, and I don't think we actually shared the connection, but Harmony lives in a place where Marge Blanc used to live. So that's how they're both really familiar with this icy patch.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you one more question before we move on to the next video. How do you feel like all of this sensory input and all of this time in nature has positively affected language for Macy?
Well, I feel like that's the building block, right? So if she's not regulated, then there's nowhere to go from there. And I feel like when she's first diagnosed, and oh my gosh, I remember the first OT to ever come to our house, and she was like, oh, she's needing input. And I remember at the time being like, oh, okay, she needs input. And then later I was all, research what that means, because I have no idea, you know? And now that's everything, because when she was when she was about 3 years old, she had this insatiable appetite for sensory needs input. Like that's all we did, you know, because if you can't satisfy that, then there's no room to go to the next step, you know. I think Jessie talked about that a little bit on your last Lunch and Learn, right? Yeah.
Jessie Ginsburg.
Yeah, she's great. So I think that is just kind of, if you think of that as your base layer, you just need that. And it also ties into her language in that, I'm just going to keep bringing up people that you've had on, but Courtney made a great point when she said that, you know, I will always, and I'm sorry, I'm going to rephrase it a little, I'm sure, but she was talking about how she will always need those gestalts to fall back on when she's a little deregulated, you know. And I feel like that's Maisie too. When she's super regulated, she's able to be at stage 3 and where she's at right now, and have that self-generated language, but she will always have Echolata to fall back on. And there's an importance there, because she needs that way to express herself when she isn't feeling grounded, I guess, you know.
Yeah, that's such an important piece. I'm glad that you brought that up. I think a lot of times parents and professionals feel like the child has quote unquote regressed if they start hearing a lot of stage 1, but the child has moved on through the stages. At that point, the majority of their language might be in 3 or 4. But I think when we hear that, just as Courtney told us in her Lunch and Learn, when we hear that, that's an indicator to us. They're communicating something right. Many cases they're communicating that they're dysregulated. So do you, when you're at home homeschooling, do you use those as signs sometimes, like, all right, we need a break and we need to go outside? Or is that not happening as much because you kind of have a rhythm?
It's still happening. I mean, I would say that, gosh, we need to get outside a lot, but you've seen, you've seen videos of our house. We literally have a scooter track on the ground homeschool level. So, I mean, we're getting a lot of regulating as we go along too. But no, she's good at letting me know in one way or the other her needs for the most part. And honestly, besides nature, she's someone that needs a lot of, she just has this incredible thirst for just life and experiences and connection. So she just needs, yeah, she needs a lot, you know? So we try and get those experiences in the best ways possible.
Yeah, Harmony's house, by the way, is pretty much like a sensory gym, which is amazing. So I imagine during your homeschooling day, she is up and moving and doing whatever she needs to do, correct?
She is, yeah. We have a table and chairs, and that's pretty much for drawing. She draws a lot too. But yeah, I have a whiteboard, and she's standing or she's on like a little fit board thing, and moving even while we're, you know, working on stuff. So yeah,
Awesome.
tons of movement.
We're going to talk a little bit more about the homeschooling in your journey, but I do want to finish showing some of these videos here.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next one. Oops. I always do that. So yeah, set us up for this video.
Okay, so this is kind of like a good video to show her progression. And I already talked about fish equals home. So this is starting when I had no idea what gestalt or even really ekalela was. But I knew that fish meant home. So that's going to start us there, and then moving to where she is now, which is pretty firmly in stage 3, a little bit stage 4, but I would say mostly 3 still.
Okay.
Fish, you want to go home?
Yeah, I'm ready to go home.
Home? Go home, pizza?
I love that.
And the first one, which, you know, I have the cute little cat face so you can't see, but she's giving what you talk about, that bingo eye contact. You know, all this is in retrospect. Like, I'm learning things from you, and then I'm like, oh, wait, hey, she did that, you know? And so once I say, oh, you're ready to go home, she still says fish, but she gives me that direct eye contact. And she's like, yes, you got it. You know what fish means, you know? So it's, I don't know. I think obviously we're moving towards more self-generated language, but I still think ekalela is just so beautiful, you know?
It is. And you understand her now. So sometimes she probably thinks, well, I'll just, you know, communicate this way because mom gets it.
Mom
She
gets
knows
it.
what
Yeah.
I need.
Yeah.
Do you think there was ever a time where you felt frustrated and you didn't understand what some of those scripts meant?
Oh, 100%. Yes. Yeah. I think that we spent, you know, her journey with speech, you know, in speech language pathology and stuff. It was frustrating not feeling like I knew what, I don't know. It was difficult. Not feeling like I had the right framework, you know. She had this wonderful speech therapist. I don't have a bad word to say about her. She genuinely cared and wanted the best for Maisie. And just in retrospect, I realized it wasn't the right approach for her. You know, it was very analytical. And so I remember times just being like searching for something that I didn't even know the question to, you know what I mean? I was just like, I know that this isn't it. Like, how am I helping her? How can I help her to be more successful? So then we found you in March. So yeah.
Yeah. So I love what you said about your speech pathologist, and that's something that I try to talk a lot about. So I don't think anyone goes into this field wanting to inflict harm. Everyone's out there to help. But I think sometimes we just do what we know and don't know that there's a better way or a different approach or something else out there. And I do think a lot of our kids like Maisie have been stuck being quote unquote treated with an analytic approach, and that has kept them, you know, stuck in the early stages of echolalia.
But I gotta say, she never tried to extinguish her ekuleele. Like, that's the
Awesome.
one thing that, like, across the board, and I've told you this before, is that we all got right, is nobody was like trying to not get her to talk.
Mhm.
We were all so excited that she was communicating, and we would all validate it. We just didn't have, we didn't know where the next step was.
Right.
But I felt like that was important, that everyone was validating her in that way.
Yeah, so that's something I remember when I first met with you, which I thought was amazing. Harmony shared with me that she felt like everyone was acknowledging Maisie's scripts, everyone that was in her life. And unfortunately, that's not always the starting point for a lot of kids. So I think once Harmony started understanding the framework and started doing some of this natural modeling at home, I think things just easily started to flow forward because there wasn't a whole lot of undoing to be done. Would you agree, Harmony?
Yes, completely. Yep.
So the next clip that I want to show is, is a really nice kind of connection. Can you explain this clip to us?
So this is Paw Patrol, and this is her favorite show from, it was the first show she ever watched, and it's just, not just a show. She just loves Paw Patrol in general. So this clip is from Paw Patrol, and then it's her recreating it in her own way.
I'm flying. I'm swimming.
I just absolutely love that because not only can we see the connection, but then we see you acknowledging and you get it. Did you get it in that moment? Did you know that was from Paw Patrol?
Oh, 100%. In that moment, I'd been working with you for a little while. So we were working on stage 2 at that point. So I was helping her, move that. And I think just the one thing that, and again, you can't see her facial expressions, but the one thing that I think we don't always recognize with ekuleele is like how much more than just the words are there. She's taking on that whole feeling from that original gestalt, and it's like, she's flying. She's telling me like, look at me, I'm flying, while she's swimming, and she's just taking all that excitement and joy out of that original. And that's why I think ekuleele is so beautiful. It's because it's, it's just not just the words, it's the whole feeling. And
oh my
so
gosh, you just said that so perfectly. Yes.
thank you.
And that's something that I've been trying to convey through what I share on social media, that we kind of have to think about where those gestalts originated from, because they are tied to strong experiences, emotions, drama. Those are the things that make gestalts stick. And she
100%.
she was conveying, I feel the way that Paw Patrol, I don't know those characters, whatever those
Alex,
characters.
you should know this one. It's Alex.
Alex, okay.
Yeah, it was
whatever Alex felt in that moment, I'm sharing that feeling right now. So I'm choosing to communicate with this gestalt.
Yeah, and she's pulling us into it, like, come join me. That's the other really, really beautiful part. So
I also love that you guys were in water and in nature when that was happening too. I don't know how you were filming that in the water, but that's pretty cool.
Oh, Marty, my husband shakes his head at me all the time, but I'm like, we need videos, and I'm so glad I captured it. But yes, I wonder if Marge recognizes that spot, because it's like such a little local, it's called Grouse Creek Falls, but it's our favorite spot in the summer.
It looks wonderful. So yeah, I'm just checking the time here. We have about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Let me remind everyone, if they have any questions for Harmony, just leave them in the chat, but I'm going to go through a few questions that people had previously submitted that they were just wondering about. So one of the questions was, why did you choose homeschooling over public or private school?
Okay, so I feel like homeschooling chose me. She, I guess just a little bit of her homeschooling journey is of her schooling journey is Well, we need more options, honestly. Like we need more options in the world, and it's just hard. She's such a specific learner, has specific needs. And so, you know, when we first, so her first school was actually pretty fantastic. It was like this little inclusive preschool / agency. And while there were, a lot of their approaches like weren't for me, but they listened. You know, it was a small place. I talked to her therapist every single day, and you know, I'd be like, that no, we're not going to go that route. And they were so great about catering it to what was best for us. So I'd say that she had a fantastic experience there. When COVID hit, that was going to be her last year there. She was aging out, and so you know, I brought her home, and then just. I think when you get a diagnosis and you're going in thinking, okay, I'm going to do these mountains of paperwork, right? And then that's going to be the hard part. But really the hard part is realizing that there aren't a lot of options, and that like you feel like, okay, I'm going to go find the right place or the right person, you know, the right therapist, but it's not how it works. It's like you get on all these wait lists and then you're just hope the phone rings one day, you know? And so like right now she's on a wait list for our dream school. She's been on it for over 3 years, you know, so it's just the other one is like she's number 57 or something, you know. So so anyway, I feel like I'm extremely again fortunate. I know that I don't take for granted how like fortunate we are that we can make it work, that I can be home with her. And it's awesome. I love it. Like, I know that the kind of person she is, she's probably going to want more. And so we have our feelers out there for like finding the right school for her. But for now, I feel like this is where she needs to be. She's in researching all this gestalt. I realize it like ties in really nicely. And I know Marge's, I think on your website had helped me with a question with this too, is it ties really into right brain learning in that style, which is a very holistic approach. Most schools are very analytical, you know, learn this, then this, then this to get to the whole picture, where she needs that whole picture before she can understand the parts. And I feel like it ties in so well with all things with her language and everything. She takes the chunk and then has to break it down from there. And again, so Tiffany, again, is someone who I consult with, you know, night function autism. I consult with her too. And she's helped me with that part of it, you know, knowing that she needs the whole equation before she can kind of understand. It's like a reverse engineering, you know?
Yeah.
So all those things, my long-winded answer is like, all those things are like, it's so specific, you know? And so sometimes homeschooling is just the best option because there's not a better fit, you know? So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Well, I'm going to jump in and ask you to share a specific example of how you've realized she's a gestalt cognitive processor as well through your homeschooling.
Okay, so a couple things, and I'll just bring in another person that you've interviewed, but I loved your interview with Rachel because she talked about, yes, she talked about that episodic memory, right? That, and when she talked about that, I was like, oh my goodness, that's Maisie. Like, she has these experiences that are like so whole, you know, it's pretty fixed, you know? And so like, for instance, Maisie loves October. She loves going to the pumpkin patch. And then I realized like pumpkin patch to her is very specific on how things are meant to go. Or, you know, like there's a candy store at our local pumpkin patch. And I realized that that's like a huge part of it. I don't know if that answers your question, but so yeah, just these experiences that she has, I realize that they're very specific. And so, you know, we're trying to give her more. So like this year, I tried to take her to a bunch of different pumpkin patches so she gets a better idea of what pumpkin patch means, that it doesn't have to be so fixed, you know? And then an example in just our homeschooling is her reading. It was very kind of whole word. reading up until about a month ago. You know, she needed that chunk. And with that, she's very highly visual learner too. So it's hard to, she needs that visualization with the word, you know, so abstract words. And I first discovered this when she asked me to draw a lot, you know, we're drawing all day, and that's how she kind of can take in information too. And she asked me to draw a double, which Rubble on the double is Rubble from Paw Patrol, his tagline, right? And so I realized in retrospect, actually, I didn't realize at the time, but I'm realizing that that is like her way of being like, I need a visual to associate with that word, you know? And so that's why abstract words are so hard sometimes for kind of gestalt learners. And so now I feel like everything's kind of coming together pretty beautifully. You know, she's at stage 3, she's understanding that single words are units, and we're just now starting in with phonics. And so now she's starting to understand that, oh, all these sounds to go together to make a word. You know, we tried before and it just, everything needed to be in that chunk. So it was really difficult for her, but it's, yeah, it's been cool. It's been a good last couple of months. You know, I feel like all this is kind of coming together. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, it really, really does. I was thinking
Yeah.
in my mind about that specific example you had shared with me regarding puzzle pieces. Was it a cat puzzle? Do you recall?
Oh, I remember. Yes. So, you mean with the Paw Patrol puzzle? Did I tell you that one?
Maybe it was. I don't know why I'm thinking a cat, but go ahead and tell that
I think
one.
you're talking about this one. So she wasn't like terribly interested in puzzles, you know, she's kind of like, yeah, you know, but I had this puzzle out, it was Paw Patrol, and I think it was like a 48 piece or whatever. And I had all the pieces laid out. We were going to put it together. She goes, where's Sky? And I was like, oh, Sky's right here and here and here and here, you know, and like, I didn't really get it. And then as we're putting it together, I realized that part of Sky was missing. So she took all those pieces, took in this huge chunk and was like, where's Sky, you know? And I thought that was amazing. Like, I didn't catch that until the end, you know? So yeah, so it's pretty incredible.
Many good stories.
Yeah.
I feel like you're going to be getting all these homeschooling questions now. So one came in the chat that I think would be great for you to answer before I get to the last 2 questions. So this person said, hi, I'm the mom of twin girls who I just realized are Gestalt language processors over the course of the pandemic and remote schooling, seeing so much more progress being home. We are now considering homeschooling instead of going back to their private school, which we love, but don't feel like it's approaching their language issues correctly, and so not making good progress. Are there any homeschooling programs that you recommend for Gestalt language processors, or are you just making your own? She says she's quite overwhelmed how to proceed, but wants to do what's best for them. And I do think homeschooling can be incredibly overwhelming. So what advice do you have to share?
I think she's, well, first in the right place with, you know, meaningful speech. I'm kind of making up as I go, but I actually put these aside in case I needed them. These are, I can't remember who told me about these, but just for reading, I found these, what's it called? Easy for Me Reading is kind of the set. So they have these snap words, which is cool. It takes like I said, these abstract words that would be difficult, like help, and it creates a visual. So it's like, she needs that visual to attach to the word. It's like that whole chunk. It's very, I'm super analytical, I'm realizing, when it comes to this kind of stuff. So this blew my mind, you know? So, you know, when you see the word elephant, she's like imagining probably an elephant, and it helps her know that word. So anyway, these, and then it comes with the easy reader set. So it's, so that has been super helpful for me. I also love, this is from Lakeshore, but now that we're doing phonics, it has like, she's a very tactile, they're tactile learners. It has like the little tactile part too, that kind of helps her understand that each sound is its own separate thing. Yes, she's welcome to instant message me too on Instagram. So I very much, I don't feel like I have it all together with the homeschooling, you know, a lot of it's difficult for me. I'm very much learning as I go, I would say 100%. But these little things have been very helpful for me. So, and for her.
I mean, I love that response because I feel like that's what we're all doing as professionals and parents, trying to individualize,
Yeah.
switching our plans as we go, like really just getting to know the child and what their needs are.
Mhm.
We'll take one last question here that came into the chat. So this is from a speech pathologist, and she
Okay.
says, as a parent, do you have any advice for us SLPs as we educate parents on using natural language acquisition and obviously educate them on gestalt language processing?
Gosh, I feel like, I think, well, for me as a parent, I just really desperately wanted to help Maisie, you know, and like, I feel like I just needed the framework. So honestly, that's following you and reading Marge's book, you know, that's, to me, that's what I needed. And I think finding, yeah, helping parents find some kind of connection that they can go to every day too, like whether it's a group of other, you know, Facebook group or whatever of other people. I know Marge has that Facebook group.
Mhm.
That's pulled me back to Facebook because I got off of it. I was like, dang it, Marge has a group. I have to get back on. But just having that connection that kind of keeps you connected, you know, and kind of and keep makes it so you're not in it alone. I feel like, does that answer the question? I don't know.
It totally does. I do want to
Okay.
kind of let people know that I do feel like Harmony was coming from a little bit of a different place than maybe some other parents are. So Maisie never did ABA. She was not coming from a place where you had received advice that you were following for a long time. And so
Mhm.
NLA kind of seemed like the opposite of that. And I think that's probably the case for maybe a lot of parents who are new to this. I think most parents that are coming to it are reading all of this and going, oh my goodness, that's my child.
Yeah.
But then there's the difficulty of, but hold on, for 5 years, I've been told to do X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
And now I'm supposed to completely switch gears. So I think the buy-in for some parents is a little bit difficult. Yeah.
I think, I mean, I did come from that a little bit because that's what, you know, you go through a diagnosis and there's such a pressure to like early intervention, you have to do all these things and those are the options. And I won't really speak on ABA because I feel like it's so nuanced and I'm just not the person to speak on that. Not really authority on that. But one thing that did like just change my whole world, I feel like, is at that time when I felt all this pressure, I watched, well, you know, Amy and Jacqueline from Autism Level Up. They did this TED Talk called Compliance is Not the Goal. And I watched that. I was just like, yes, this is what I've been looking for. Like, this is what I needed to hear. So I feel like that set me on a good path for feeling confident in taking our own route, you know, because it's a scary thing to take your own route, you know. So yeah.
And that's something that's often encouraged. So was Maisie diagnosed by a developmental pediatrician or a neurologist, neuropsychologist?
So she was, and this was right before she hit 3, which was, it's important to note that age because here in Idaho we have, it's called infant toddler program. So if you go to them before 3, it's pretty fantastic. And so we talked to our doctor about it and she's the one that had recommended that. And it's really cool. They send a speech therapist over and an occupational therapist over and a caseworker over. And so it was like really extremely helpful, you know, to get that information. And then they referred, I think it wasn't her pediatrician. It was a psychologist of some sort that did her diagnosis.
And did they recommend ABA or tell you to start doing all these therapies? Because she aged out at 3 from infant toddler.
Yeah, so we were only in it for like a month. He was pretty great. He didn't I mean, it's such a weird process, right? He's in the room with her for 30 minutes and he's like, he's autistic, you know, and like yeah, and it was you know, they give you a number, which is so weird, you know, because like there's so many parts to who you are as a human. Like it's weird to get a number. Anyway, so but he was great at like, I had questions afterwards and I emailed him and he's like, here are some places. He was pretty fantastic.
He wasn't pushy.
Extremely lucky because he wasn't like, oh, you have to do this. He was like, oh yeah, that seems like a great school. And this is an option. This is an option. So I'd say we're really fortunate there.
Yeah, I think you had one of the better experiences, it sounds like. I do think a lot of parents almost feel like forced into needing to do a bunch of therapies or ABA and just really deviating from more naturalistic approaches. Just kind of depends who diagnosed them and what their first experience and journey is.
And not that we didn't feel that pressure in some ways. I mean, like her school was pretty, I mean, it's sort of, it was a great experience, but like I said earlier, there were a lot of things that I was like, we're not going to go that route. So it was like amazing that they listened to me. But it's not like we didn't feel that pressure in any way, but yes, but overall, I feel like we were extremely, extremely lucky. Even being in Idaho for like homeschooling rules, there are none. They're like, good luck, you know, which for some that might seem scary, but for me, I'm like, okay, I don't have that worry of like standardized tests or whatever. So yes, extremely fortunate in many, many ways.
Well, Harmony, I kept you a couple of minutes over, but I just want to say thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah.
I think that this was super enlightening for both SLPs and parents and any other people that might end up coming across this on YouTube. I don't want to put any pressure on you, but is there anything that you want to leave us with or let people know?
Just
follow your own path is what I would say is the summary of our chat.
I think so. I think finding, oh, and one thing like that I really wish someone would have told, like overwhelmed with so much information. I think like right as a diagnosis, I don't know why no one says find autistic people to listen to, you know. I think
thank you so much for saying that. Yes,
because it's such a huge connection. Like I consult with you and that's been amazing. I also consult with you know, Tiffany pretty regularly, and it's just, she has insights that I just don't have, you know. And it's you know, Maisie's going to need these role models, and yeah, I'm just trying to help her to adapt to a world that's not always easy on her without clipping it. That's like my goal, you know. So I think that, yeah, finding these autistic people are, you know, to learn from, it's extremely, extremely helpful.
Wow, I really appreciate that you brought that up, and you're absolutely right. Definitely very, very important. So I will try my best to link to some of the things that you had said when I post this video on YouTube. Harmony's account on Instagram is private, but she did want to let me know that you are all welcome to DM her if you have any questions. She would be happy to help. And thank you again, everyone, for being here. And thank you, Harmony.
Thank you.
And I hope everyone has happy holidays, and we will be back in January with another parent who is parenting a gestalt language processor who communicates 100% with AAC. So we will be talking about that in a few weeks.
I think I might know who that is. That's a good one. All right.
Okay.
Alex, I can't even begin to say how helpful you've been just overall. Like, I feel like once we met you and read Marge's book, it's like a huge weight lift. So I just wanted to say thank you. And this has been great.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks again for being here. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.